Welcome to EnduringTechnologyPress.com. I'm Eric. And if you drink beer, this isn't Bo, it's just a Bo's glass, you should really brew beer. And it's really easy. Like, you can go into a lot of extra effort and really manipulate things and get a lot of control by going all grain. But if you're just starting out, one of these kits makes a lot of sense. And even if you're brewing often with all grain, sometimes they come at a real deal. In this case, these were on special for $13.59, tax then on top of it. All you really need here are a few key ingredients, and it's a great way to get into brewing. Or if you just haven't had the time to do an all grain batch, this will keep you in beer without having to go to the beer store. So if you're starting out, what are a couple of things you need? Well, you need a good sized pot to heat your water and then mix in your malt syrup. And it's got the hops already in it. You're going to need a couple of fermenters. And some people will use a plastic bucket for their primary and then rack it over into a secondary. And usually a glass carboy is the secondary. In this case, I prefer to ferment out and do a primary fermentation in the glass. And then, depending on where I am with time, if fermentation is more or less stopped before I've had a chance to rack it over into my kegs, I'll just rack it directly into my kegs and put it in the fridge. But if I pull it off, fermentation's still going and I want to get it off the yeast, I'll pull it over into this smaller one. This one is about 5 gallons, and I guess this is about 7 gallons. So I've never had any problem with this filling up with foam or anything like that, or blocking up. And one advantage I've found is that not only do I standardize my kit on all glass stuff, but also these are very easy to clean. And so what I've done here, I don't have it in front of me, but you'll also need a brush. And these look like a long bottle brush, and twist them around. The head comes straight. I've always found that you should twist it so that you could actually reach the neck here. So you make sure that all of the gunk is cleaned off after you've fermented, and fill it right back up with water. That's my rule. As soon as I've emptied it out, I'll fill it back up with water, let it soak for a little bit, and then give it a good brushing. Empty it out. And then right before I go to ferment or rack it over into the secondary, I'll go fill it up, rinse it out once to get rid of any dust. Sometimes I'll cover it up with plastic wrap, but often that's not the case. So I'll rinse out any dust, then I'll go fill it up with warm water and give it a couple good glugs of bleach, and that'll sterilize it. And that's all you have to do. Very quick, very simple, low hassle. So ferment out in this one, secondary in this one, and get it between the two, and then out of this one, you can fool around with a whole lot of different siphon ones, but this is an automatic siphon. So you lower this in, it's got a one-way valve in the bottom, put this in, and then you can suck up, and you'll pull up the beer or wine if you're using it for wine, and it works fantastically. It's low hassle. It'll leave all of the yeast back in the bottom of your fermenter, and you only get out clear product. And with that, you're going to need a hose. These are usually disconnected and broken apart for cleaning after I've used them, and to let them dry. Now, while you're fermenting, you're going to need an airlock, and what these do, and here are two different models. This one has a little cup on the inside, and that'll float up until it's hit by that cap. This one fills up in these bubbles and then bubbles through. I found them to be equally good. This keeps the CO2 an inert atmosphere in these while you're fermenting, and make sure that instead of just growing lots of yeast, you actually get alcohol out. And you need a CO2 anaerobic environment for the yeast to do that. Now, you could use all sorts of chemicals. or things to sterilize, I go with simple. I'll just use vodka. The reason being, I usually ferment down in the basement. If there ever was a temperature change, or I shifted things around and spilled the vodka in, not a big deal. If it was something else, it might kill off my yeast. So, and this is around and it's fairly quick and simple to get. To get it in there and out of the pot, buy a good funnel. And this is the big one. Maybe it's because I'm a man, and as women know, men can't aim when it comes to liquids. So get a big funnel, and that'll save a lot of grief. And the other note of advice is, when you're doing it, unless it's your very first batch or second batch, you want to get a couple. You have to sterilize everything. You have to clean everything up. You have to set time aside. To do that for one batch, really, at least for me, not really terribly worth it. When we start getting into 2 batches, that's more reasonable. Everything will be cleaned. You can do a little bit more of a process line. And then I'll come back later and talk about whether you use bottles or kegs. If you've got the option for kegs, that makes life so much simpler. And if you take out those hurdles to actually doing it, it becomes so much easier to actually implement it in your life. So those are some of the key things for brewing beer. Now I'm going to put the water on the stove and mix in the syrup once it warms up. We're not going to let it boil. And then we'll pour it into our primary fermenter. What I'm going to do here is fill this up about halfway or a quarter of the way with warmish water. And that way I just don't get as much of a thermal shock when that hot liquid from the pot is poured in to the carboy. So with that, if you've got a desire to see what we've got on the website, go to enduringtechnologypress.com. Thanks.